All right, welcome back to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. This is our Week 10 recap episode and playoff preview, actually. And I'm Brad.
And I'm Hefe.
What? No Zach?
Yeah, a little weird not having him right there in the middle.
Yeah. So right now Zach is out somewhere in the frozen tundra with snowshoes with his 12 gauge tracking the deer. So he's left us here to do this on our own. I think we can do it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can handle it.
All right. Now we can't. This can't be too smooth and too good because then he'll feel like he doesn't matter. And it's the Horseman for a reason. It's not the Horseman. So anyway, we want to thank you for watching, listening, watching, whatever the case may be, and please be sure to show us some love, like, share, and subscribe. The word is getting out. We certainly appreciate your help. We'd like to ask you to continue. Please tell all of your friends. Every little bit helps. And we are certainly grateful for the support. Okay. Last week, we started with the AFC playoff picture. We thought it only fair to go and start with the NFC playoff picture. What a crazy weekend for games. These playoff pictures, they're tight, man. They are really, really tight. There's a lot of really good teams in both divisions. It's weird. It seems like to me like both divisions have seven. It seems to me both divisions have 7 teams that deserve to be in the playoffs, which is weird, right? We have 7 playoff spots. I know that sounds cliche, but I mean, I legitimately mean they each have 7 teams that are switching places and could legitimately be in the playoffs. And it seems like 8 and below probably shouldn't be there. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. I think a lot of times in the playoffs, you probably have about 4 teams that probably ought to be there. But it doesn't look that way this year, does it?
No, that's what I've been thinking too. You know, the records are starting to get closer, especially with the NFC West playing each other a lot. They've kind of cannibalized each other. And, outside of the Steelers and the Chiefs, I mean, everybody's stacking right on top of each other in terms of the playoff teams. And, I mean, we see the Raiders are a team that, could end up and probably will end up with one of the wild card spots, but they're going to be dangerous for anybody.
Yeah, and I don't see some people are going to disagree with me. I'd like to hear your opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. I don't see a clear-cut favorite to run away with this year.
No, and like as much as I don't want to say this, I think the Steelers is like the obvious choice because no matter how ugly they win, they just keep winning. So they might be the front runners, but I agree. I think they're 12 to 14 teams that you look at right now, and you say, yeah, they definitely have a chance to win it this year.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, we're talking about the Colts. We're talking about the Dolphins. We're talking about the Raiders. We're talking about the Rams. I mean, we're all. I agree with you. 12 to 14 teams could win the Super Bowl this year. What an exciting season!
Yep, everybody except for whoever makes it in out of the NFC East. Every playoff team has a chance.
Touche, my friend. All right, so in the NFC, we're going to start with the NFC. In the NFC playoff picture, at the number 1 spot is, and as I was reviewing this information last night, this surprises me a little bit because I didn't realize how clear cut this is. But the New Orleans Saints are sitting at number 1, atop of the NFC South, and I think they've locked this division up. I don't think Tampa can catch them.
Yeah, see, they're just too much inconsistencies coming from Tampa to be confident that they can take this division, especially with the Saints. They obviously won both the game against the Bucs. So at this point, it just seems like there's no way the Saints lose this division.
Yeah, and I mean they're already down. What is it? A half game lead over Tampa Bay, but they hold the tiebreaker. Right? They've beaten them twice. So Tampa has to overcome not only the half game lead, but the tiebreaker, and then and surge ahead another game. So they're really Tampa's 3 games out from being able to win this division. I don't think there's enough time.
No, I don't either. And we just saw on Sunday in the Saints against 49ers, Michael Thomas came back, and obviously they had all those wins without Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas comes back, and I think only got what, 2 catches for 13 yards or something like that. Wasn't even a factor, and they still won by 2 touchdowns. So I
Yeah.
mean, they look like one of the most dangerous teams in the league right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And on top of that, they're going to get the bye. So maybe that whole there is no front runner thing just went right out the window. The Saints are playing well. They're getting the. We knew they would be tough. Anybody that doubted Sean Payton and Drew Brees out, even with some ups and downs they had early, it doesn't surprise me they got it together. They're going to pull it together. They're going to get a first round bye and have a short step to the Super Bowl. So they may be clear cut favorites in the NFC. But so looking ahead, the Saints have they have Atlanta twice. They have Carolina. They have Philadelphia. I mean, are you kidding me? They do have Kansas City in Week 15. That may depend on where the Packers lie at that point and what Tampa does. So, is it possible that the New Orleans could rest starters for 2 weeks?
It's yeah, possible. Very possible. And right now, Drew Brees had to leave the game on Sunday because of a rib injury, and Jameis came in, and obviously they still use Taysom Hill. And while you're probably confident, with Jameis to a point in that offense, he's obviously more turnover prone than a Drew Brees. So hopefully, Drew can come back, and the rib injury is not going to affect him. But it's definitely something to watch. If Jameis costs them a game or two, and the Bucks win a couple games, like you said, they pull ahead and they're a game up, then the Saints are in a little bit tougher position.
Yeah, for sure. But if we do the math and we look at 2 wins in Atlanta, probably a win in Carolina, right? So now the Saints are 10-2. They can afford to drop a game or two. Tampa still can't catch them, and it's all going to depend on what happens with Green Bay, which Green Bay's got a tough schedule ahead of them. They've got some games coming up that could cost them. They've got Indianapolis and Tennessee on the schedule. I don't know that they're going to go backwards, so we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's move right in. Green Bay's at number 2. They're 7-2. They struggled against Jacksonville. I mean, they only won yesterday 24-20.
And I'll tell you what, Jags made me look pretty smart on that one. I told you I think the Packers are winning, but damn it, there's a chance.
I thought you were crazy. I thought you'd just been spending too much time with those Jacksonville fans in that AFC South group. But you were right. You were right. And I didn't see enough of the game. I don't know why that happened. So the question there is this going to be a factor when they play? Packers have to play Chicago twice, and then they have Indianapolis and they have Tennessee.
Yeah, and any team with a decent running game, the Chicago games don't really scare me. Maybe the weather in those games could affect the outcome, but really it's the Tennessee and the Indianapolis game, teams that can stay on the field with the run game or the short passing game. The Packers defense, as everybody knows, dating back to last year, they just have a hard time stopping the run, and that's why I thought Jacksonville was a dangerous game, because you have this quarterback coming in that nobody really knows, so maybe you overlook them. It's a team that's only got one win. Maybe you overlook the whole week. You got Indy the next week. And I thought Jacksonville could run on them. I really like Jacksonville's running back Robinson. And so it was definitely a dangerous game. And any team with a strong running game is going to be dangerous when it comes to Green Bay.
Yeah, so we need to include Indianapolis and especially Tennessee in that conversation. So it'd be interesting to see what the Packers do and how that relates to what the Saints do on down the road, as we just mentioned. Number 3 is the Arizona Cardinals in the NFC West at 6-3. This is remarkable because any of the 4 teams in the NFC West, you could make a statement that they belong in the playoffs. The 49ers have just had their share of problems and injuries and things that are keeping them legitimately out of that conversation, and will probably keep them out of the playoffs. Though they could get it together and go on a run. But I think the NFC West is sitting comfortably in the 3rd spot as we break this out. Some people who have not looked at this may be like, well, that's, pretty bold predictions talking about the Saints. Why are you worried about what the Packers are doing? But the NFC West, and you use a good word a second ago, the NFC West is probably going to sit at third because the NFC East is going to sit at the fourth spot because they're complete garbage. But the word you used was perfect. They're going to remain in the third playoff spot because they're just cannibalizing each other.
Yeah, and I mean, to the fullest extent, even the 49ers with all their injuries, Kyle Shanahan is a good enough coach to keep them in the games, especially in the division, right? When they play the Seahawks or they play the Cardinals again, those are going to be closer games. They might not win it because they don't have the talent there. But this is just we knew coming into the year this division was going to be crazy, but I don't think anybody expected it to be anywhere near as good. They have two MVP candidate quarterbacks. They have a couple of the or one of the best defenses in the league. I mean, one of the best, maybe two of the best coaches in the league. They have it all going on right now.
Yeah, they certainly do. And we might say right now the Arizona Cardinals are third in this playoff race, but they are really, there's a three-way tie for third in the NFC West. I mean, the Rams are at 6-3 and the Seahawks are at 6-3. And this division can go in any direction at any time. Any one of these three teams, and potentially the 49ers, they probably won't, but any one of these teams can win this division. So the Cardinals are far from having this locked up. They had a big win yesterday. We got to mention the D-Hop Hail Mary. Big win against a very good Buffalo team. They still had to win it in the end, but they did win it. What a hell of a division to watch finish off the year here.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, especially that Week 11 matchup when the Cardinals have to play the Seahawks. That's going to be a huge game.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to run down the other teams in the NFC West when we get down below. But real quick, I want to go through the Cardinal remaining games, and this will give listeners and viewers an idea of what we're talking about. So the Cardinals, they beat Seattle already in Week 7. Right? They play Seattle again in Week 11. They also have the Rams in Week 13, San Francisco in Week 16, the Rams in Week 17, and then they also play the Eagles. Nobody cares about that. But so with the remaining of these games, I mean, I can't begin to predict. The hardest games to predict all year have been the NFC West. So completely up in the air from here. All right, number 4, unfortunately, is still the Philadelphia Eagles at 3-5-1, and I still can't believe. Every time I say it, I just can't believe I say it. Or is it the New York Giants at 3-7, or the Washington football team at 2-7, or the Dallas Cowboys at 2-7? This is another division for completely opposite reasons is completely up for grabs.
Yeah, and when it comes to this division, it was nice not to see the Cowboys for many reasons. Who wants to watch the Cowboys play? But especially when they're bad. So this weekend, I thought Washington was actually going to have a good chance to take control here, and they came back in that game, but they certainly weren't perfect. Right now, I think the Giants are probably sitting pretty in the best spot. They're again probably not going to win any playoff games, but they're definitely getting their shit together. And with the Eagles having to have a bye week coming up, I think the Giants are for sure about to take control of this division.
I agree with you, and we talked about this last week. When we look at these teams, the Cowboys are trying to. I mean, they're in complete disarray. They've dropped all their marbles in the dark, and they're scurrying on the floor trying to pick them up. They have no idea what in the hell has even hit them. Washington, I don't know what's going on in Washington. I don't get any vibes there. The Eagles, expected to be the division leaders, are hanging on for dear life, just desperately trying to figure out how they can get a win, which probably equates to they're just trying not to lose at this point. The Giants have nothing to lose, and they just beat the Eagles yesterday, and they're 3-7, sitting on the brink of taking control of this division. And I think from a morale standpoint, I think you're dead on the money. I think if I had to put a bet on any of the 4 teams in this division right now, it would be the Giants.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've talked about defense a lot. Their defense it just keeps getting better. Every week they keep stepping up. James Bradbury is somebody that was never really talked about in his career while he was in Carolina, but now that he's with the Giants, he's still not being talked about. But I mean, probably Robbie Anderson to the Panthers one of the best offseason moves. But James Bradbury being a part of that Giants defense has been a huge game changer.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I don't have the Giants schedule in front of me. Can you pull that up real quick while I'm running through this? I want to the Eagles. Here's another reason why the Eagles, I think, are in a lot of trouble. The Eagles have that. I mean, they got their NFC East games. They have Washington. They have Dallas. But the Eagles have Cleveland in Week 11. They have Seattle in Week 12. Green Bay in Week 13. New Orleans Week 14, and Arizona in Week 15. They can kiss their ass goodbye. That they're not going to get it together and be able to survive that.
Yeah, well, the Giants' schedule isn't a whole lot better. Obviously, teams in the division play a lot of the same teams. They have
Great point.
They have the Bengals, their next game on the 29th, and then they play the Seahawks after that, the Cardinals after that, the Browns on December 20th, the Ravens on December 27th, and then they finish the year against the Cowboys. So they have a pretty treacherous run for the next 5 games.
So again, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We might have our first 5 or 6 win playoff team in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, that's what it looks like right now. If the Giants, if the prediction's right, then I don't see them winning any more than 5 games.
You know who has the advantage? The Eagles, because they tied one of the games instead of losing it.
That's right.
What a mess. All right. Tampa is in the 5th spot, probably going to stay there in a wild card spot. We talked about that a minute ago. I don't think they can catch New Orleans, bar a weird disaster. I've seen weirder things happen, so I'm not counting them out. And this isn't discounting how good the Bucs are and can be. They can certainly win this Super Bowl. I think I think we talked about that a lot at the beginning of the year, that it's so long ago I can't remember who I picked, but I think I picked the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, and New Orleans is certainly capable as well. They beat the Panthers pretty much. They put the Panthers pretty much out of their misery yesterday. I think any hopes the Panthers had of making the playoffs were just completely doused with gasoline and set on fire before the end of the day. They're all but mathematically eliminated, and we expected as much as well. Let's have a eulogy for the Panthers right now. We're probably not going to talk much about them the rest of the year. I'm impressed. It doesn't look like much to people on the outside not paying attention, but the Panthers Matt Rule's put something together that I didn't expect to see out of him. Teddy Bridgewater has shown that he is going to be a formidable leader in this league. And it appears that the Panthers, we may be able to expect at least 8 wins out of them next year.
Oh yeah, I would definitely think so. More experience, more time in this Matt Rule system, and they're going to get healthy again. We talked about K'Wan Short being out, huge factor in the defensive line. They still have to replace Luke Kuechly. That's been a big problem. So those 2 positions just right there are a huge reason why their defense can't get off the field. They can't stop the run. And then, in the game yesterday, it was a great game up until halftime, but they had Dante Jackson get hurt after the offseason that they had where a bunch of their secondary left. Dante Jackson was the veteran there. He was their best defender up to this point, and he left the game early. And after he left, they were able to blow it open. The Bucs were. So it's unfortunate that they went out the way they did, but they have for sure high hopes for next season.
Yeah. So I know we're talking about the Bucs, we're talking about the playoffs. I just thought it was worth noting. I mean, I dogged them pretty hard, and I really didn't dog them. I just didn't expect it much. And with Matt Rule, I kind of busted his balls a little bit, but it's worth noting. We see the improvement, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next year for sure.
Absolutely.
Going back to the Bucs, they have played Atlanta twice. I was getting ready to say I don't see too much of a problem there, but Atlanta could sneak one of those games, especially with the struggles the Buccaneers have had. It's still not going to affect their playoff hopes, I don't think. With the NFC West beating the hell out of each other, cannibalizing each other, as you mentioned, I think that'll help keep the Bucs afloat in about probably the 5th or 6th spot. So I think they're probably good. They do still have the Rams and Kansas City on their schedule, which could play a factor as well. All right, so 6th spot is the Rams really, really either the Cardinals, the Rams, or the Seahawks. They're all three at 6-3 in the NFC West. Big win for the Rams yesterday, controlling their own destiny and really boosted my confidence in where they're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. And they surprised me. They had been so inconsistent. I just kind of expected MVP Russ to come out and be MVP Russ, but I think MVP Russ just got himself taken out of MVP talks because that Rams defense was all over the place. They played so well for 60 minutes. I believe Russ didn't even have a touchdown in that game, but two interceptions. And and they, as long as they keep playing like that, then I think they have a good as chance as anybody to win the Super Bowl this year. They just need Jared Goff to be consistent. They need that running game to be consistent. Now, where the Rams might get in trouble is that their star offensive tackle Andrew Whitworth, he went down yesterday with a torn MCL, and he on the same play injured his PCL. His ACL is fine though, but he's older. He's mid-30 offensive lineman, so you have to imagine that this is going to change the trajectory of what his career had left. It's for sure going to affect what they're able to do for the rest of the year, blocking that blind side for Jared Goff. But they looked strong yesterday, and as long as you have a defense that can keep you in games and a good run game, then you have a good chance any week. So I like the Rams to, like you said, they're definitely going to be in the playoffs, but maybe win this division.
Yeah, again, if I had to pick one of the four NFC West teams, and I don't like the Seahawks personally. We all know that. But I have given all four of these teams props, right? If the 49ers were in a different division, there's different things going on despite the hurdles that they've gotten on that they've had to overcome, right? So, but when it all comes down to it, the Cardinals are good and they're getting lucky. The Seahawks are good and they're getting unlucky. The Rams are getting better, and when you got some veterans who they've been there before. They made a run deep a few years ago. You got a good coach, you got a good quarterback, you got a solid defense, and you figure out how about week 13 to start fine-tuning and start peaking. The Rams could do a lot of damage in January.
Yeah, sure. I completely agree. Yeah, like I said, they've been inconsistent before, but I'm in the same line of thinking. If they choose right now to start putting it together week in and week out, they're going to be really dangerous.
Yeah, and I've been critical of them being inconsistent. I call them schizophrenic, but a lot of that is for effect on the show, right? I mean, that's what we do. We make fun of people and call people and call attention to the things that some people don't see, the patterns and that kind of thing. But we expect teams to be a little inconsistent in the first half of the season. That's what it's for, is to start figuring out your identity. The second half is to start fine tuning, and then you make your run into the playoffs. And that's exactly the formula that the Rams appear to be following. So I'm agree with you. I think before this is all said and done, they're going to move up to the third spot, which kind of takes us to the Seahawks. They're losing ground. They've been exposed. Russell Wilson, he can't do everything, and they're figuring it out now. They're just plugging holes in their weaknesses. And I expect this. I'm going to say spiral. I don't want to be doomsday. I think they'll be in the hunt until the end, but in the end, I don't think they'll be in the hunt. I think it'll be over here in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that. I hope that's not the case. I want to think that the last couple of weeks it's been tough for them because Chris Carson's out. Chris Carson's just that damn good that not having him is really a big deal. But that offensive line there in Seattle is an issue. And I mean, sure, Russ is mobile enough to be able to make his own plays and do his thing. But, when you have a guy like Jalen Ramsey locking up a guy like DK Metcalf, then, Russ's magic, it's just not as magical. He can't do as much. The running game's not there. Hopefully it gets better. But their defense is an issue right now. The offensive line is an issue. And even if they make it into the playoffs, it doesn't make me very confident in what they can do.
No, it gets hard. When you're good and you have problems that don't make you great, it's harder to fix than when you're bad. When you're bad and there's no expectations, you can be aggressive in making changes, because if they don't work, no one cares. When you're 6-3 and you're sitting at the top of the division coming into the second half of the season, and you change something radically and you take a nosedive and lose 5 games, they'll have your ass before the season's over.
Yes.
So Pete Carroll, as much as I'm not a big fan, he's in a really, really bad situation at the moment with a situation that I don't think can be fixed by the end of the year. That's why I agree with everything you said. I just don't think he's going to be able to patch this up enough to make a difference. And it doesn't sound like you think so either.
Yeah, well, there's one thing that I think he could do that could help, and that would be, back when Seattle had, Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman, all them boys, and they were winning championships. Dan Quinn was that defensive coordinator. There's been talk of Pete Carroll bringing Dan Quinn back in to help the defense, and I don't know if that's a move you make midseason, but it wouldn't hurt at this point, right?
No, except Dan is fishing with Bob, and they can't be found right now.
Yeah, true that.
They were waiting on Beelzebub, but he looks like he's trying to revive the Patriots franchise. We'll get into that a little bit here in a second. All right, on the outside looking in are the Bears and the Lions. I mean, the Lions are done. I don't I don't have a whole lot of information on them because they're not going anywhere. I'm not real sure the Bears will either. The only thing is if the NFC West, if they all split their games, some of those teams may have enough losses. If the Bears can hold it together, they may squeeze in here. We're going to see as of this recording on Monday, they have Minnesota tonight. I think Minnesota is going to expose them as being a fraudulent. What were they, 5-0? Even if they win, they're still several games behind Green Bay. They're going to have to get in on record alone, and I'm not real confident that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think they certainly have the talent there in Chicago. The Darnell Moon has come on. Allen Robinson's a wonderful receiver. They haven't got the running game going. It'll be interesting to see. Matt Nagy said that he's given up the play calling abilities to his offensive coordinator. You hired the guy to do something, let him do something, right? So hopefully the offense can get better with somebody else calling plays, because obviously Matt Nagy has been terrible with it. I just like you just mentioned a couple minutes ago, when you make this kind of a change mid-season, I just don't think it's the answer, because now you're going back to finding the identity under this guy and the way he's running it and in the way he wants it to look. And they're going to stumble probably for a couple games. Luckily, they have Minnesota and they have a little bit of a weaker defense. But once you get after that and you start playing tougher teams, I just don't know if this was the move that was going to make them better. So I don't have any confidence here with the Bears either.
Yeah, but with that said, I agree with everything you said. But when we look at the Bears situation, they're on a skid, and at this point, if they don't stop the skid, they're going to be 5-8. And I think at that point, he's doing what he can to stop the skid, because if he doesn't stop the skid, they're not going anywhere anyway. Little different than the Seahawks situation. The Seahawks can still win their division. Matt Nagy knows he can't win their division. He's just trying, and at the pace they're going, they're not going to win anything. So let's see if it pays off for him. And then the third team outside is the 49ers, and with injuries and the things going on, I really don't think there's much to talk about with them either. So to recap that real quick, I mean, we talked about the 17 thing, the 12 to 14 teams. I want to hit these real quick just as a recap. The Saints, the Packers, the Cardinals, the Eagles are somebody at the NFC is going to get a spot, so they don't count. But like I said, the Saints, Packers, Cardinals, Buccaneers, Rams, Seahawks. There's your teams right there. I think we have our playoffs set, other than the NFC East in the NFC.
Yep, that's what I think. The same 7 teams should stay there. Just how do they end up in the rankings?
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving on to the AFC. Number one's real easy. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 9-0. Best start in franchise history. Destroyed the Bengals. For an interdivision game of a sleeper with Joe Burrow playing well and they could catch him off guard, your ass. I'm the one that said that. Your ass. I'm embarrassed that I even mentioned a possible interdivisional upset.
Yeah, me too. I thought for sure that this was an upset alert kind of game. They've been dangerous for people, but they just all day long couldn't get anything going. And I didn't look at the weather report of that game. I popped in and out to see what was going on and just kept seeing the score go up, up, up. But they, they came in and handled business. They did not play down to the talent level of their opponent this game, and I mean they look like the best team in the NFL.
They really do, and they are 3 games ahead of Baltimore. So nobody's taking this division away from them. That's locked. We're in week 9, and the Steelers have locked up the division, right? So, Baltimore's lost to the Patriots last night. We're getting ready to talk about Baltimore. I don't even know where Baltimore goes from here. That's in question. But I want to run down the remaining schedule. Obviously, Pittsburgh plays Baltimore in Week 12. At this point, I don't even see that. I can't pick against the Steelers the rest of the year. I can't. So I got to go with them against Baltimore. All right, that's in Week 12. Even if Baltimore beats them in Week 12, they still can't. I mean, Baltimore would have to lose. The Steelers would have to lose to Indy and Buffalo and lose a game in the division. It ain't happening, right? Here's the point I want to make, bro. The Steelers could run the table at Baltimore Week 12, Buffalo Week 14, Cincinnati Week 15, Indy, and Cleveland. They are capable of winning every single one of these games and finishing 16-0.
Yeah, it's definitely setting up to be that way. And if they're, some coaches take the foot off the pedal once you get later in the season. You already have the number 1 locked up, whatever. But Mike Tomlin seems like the kind of guy, especially after last year where they went 8-8. Everybody was laughing about how bad the Steelers were just for them, to finish 8-8. And he did a great job. Still no losing seasons under Mike Tomlin. And now I think they're just gonna obliterate people. Hopefully, I'm wrong. They play Indianapolis in Week 16. Hopefully I'm wrong there. But right now, their defense is playing outstanding. Their offense, they have so many receivers. It seems like they have one receiver held out because of injury every week. And it doesn't really even matter because they have 3 or 4 guys that they depend on week to week. And I mean, they're just so deep. Even at running back, they have 3 guys that they've been using over the last couple of weeks. This McFarland guy also, it's just like, they're just deep at every position. It seems they're probably the healthiest team in the league right now, and everything's going right for them.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I want to say that go along with everything you just said. The first one is Howie Long was talking about it yesterday. As far as the coaching in Pittsburgh, somehow they just get it right. They have their 3rd coach headed to the Hall of Fame. That's the first thing I want to say. And I want to throw in, you just mentioned his 8-8 season. We talked about this before the season started. I remember I specifically brought this up, that Tomlin has a habit of when he goes 8-8 and he has a mediocre season or two, which he never had a losing season in Pittsburgh, he comes out of the gate and he smashes everybody and makes a deep run. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. There's the culture in Pittsburgh that we're all, if you're a football fan, everybody knows the culture in Pittsburgh. All right. So we can talk about the current Bucks. We can talk about the previous Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning. We can talk about all these teams that let the foot off the gas, that rest their starters, that do this and that. I don't see the culture in Pittsburgh allowing them the feeling that they have the ability to do that. I don't see it happen. I think Pittsburgh just wants to come out and punch you in the face every single week. And I'm going to go on record. I thought the Patriots were going to do it a couple years ago. We all did when Giants beat them in the Super Bowl. The 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, could very well be on par with the 1972 Dolphins, the 1985 Bears, and the 2007 New England Patriots. And they could run the table on this. Finish the season 16-0, and they could win this Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it's probably my dislike for Pittsburgh that in my brain, like I'm like, oh no, once they get to the playoffs, somebody will be able to beat them. Because I do think their schedule, the AFC North didn't have the most difficult schedule this year. Outside of each other, obviously, Baltimore and Pittsburgh got to play each other a couple times. Cincinnati's been kind of dangerous, even though they just got their ass kicked. and obviously Cleveland's kind of dangerous. So, but outside of their division, it's been a little easier, and so it's my hope that somebody can finish them off in the playoffs. But like you said, right now, just it doesn't look like anybody's going to be able to beat them. Every other team in the league seems to have just one inconsistency that they can't put a pin in and get that well week after week. And the Steelers, I mean, even if they have a down game, they can't stop the run. Their secondary is still amazing, and they still have a good run game and a good offensive line and a good pass rush and good receivers. I mean, they're good all the way around. Amazing coach. I mean, they're just everything is good for them right now. It's really unfortunate.
It really is. And here's the other thing, and I don't know Tomlin personally, right? He seems like the kind of guy, which is why he's successful. That the organization is everything, and that's the culture in Pittsburgh. It really is organization first up there, and he seems like he's that guy. But there is no better way to secure your legacy for an organization like the Pittsburgh Steelers than to go undefeated. Now people are talking about you instead of Chuck Noll. That in itself is we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I'm entertaining myself with this conversation, but it's exciting to think about the possibility that this is a very real possibility that we'll be watching over the next couple of weeks. So
yeah, I mean, how much sweeter would it be if they win undefeated? If they win the Super Bowl undefeated, they not only do the perfect season, but they're back on top of who has the most Super Bowls because they'll have 7 to the Patriots.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Are you turning? Are you going to root for him?
Nope. Big Ben could. I won't say what I was going to say.
On the flip side of this, when you analyze the more you win, the harder it is to win. Right? The more the probability is that something is going. They could have a game where everything just goes completely wrong and they don't have any idea why. It could happen any given Sunday. We all know that. God forbid injuries could pop up, and they could be peaking early. And it could just taper off, and nobody really knows why it tapered off. So there's a lot to consider in this, but right now they've earned this discussion about how good they are, and we'll move on to not nauseate people who hate Steelers, including our co-host Hefe. All right, in the number 2 spot at 8-1, which nobody probably would have thought this was a possibility, at being 8-1, the Kansas City Chiefs being in the 2nd spot, but that's exactly where they are. They're coming off a bye week. Not a whole lot to talk about other than they are only 1.5 games ahead of Las Vegas.
Yep, and they got a big old game this week, and there's a lot that I'd like to say about that game. We'll save that for the picks and preview show, but I think that's going to be a dangerous game. I don't think it's going to be as easy to win this division as the first month of the season. It looked like they were going to run away with it, but Las Vegas is.
And then they lost to Vegas.
Yeah. Losing Las
that's
Vegas.
The whole point, setting us up for this conversation. Yeah.
Yep.
They look like they're going to run away. They lost to Vegas, and they're going to Las Vegas this week.
Yep. Got to go into the black hole. Las Vegas is going to come in pumped up. And, Andy Reid and the GM there, John Veach, whatever his name is, they just signed contract extensions, and the Chiefs know how important this one is. And it's definitely going to be a big week 11 because after that, for the most part, with a lot of the games that the Chiefs have coming up, with the matchups, the individual matchups, I like the Chiefs in pretty much any game after that. It's just this Raiders game that worries me.
Or excites you because you're a Raiders fan.
Or that, yeah. Me personally, I'm kind of excited about it. I think they can get the job done and win this division.
Yeah. But it's still also we should also note that the Chiefs don't have an easy road either. I mean, they've got Vegas, which we just talked about. They have Denver, but I think Denver's in KC, so it's still interdivision, but it doesn't worry me a whole lot. They have the Chargers, but it's also in KC, so that still interdivisional. And the Chargers, I heard the Chargers lost. I heard yesterday 6 games by 24 points.
Wow, I know they've lost at least 2 by in like last second situations.
Yeah. So the Chargers are capable of beating the Chiefs as well. The Chiefs also they're at Tampa Bay, they're at Miami, and they're at New Orleans. That is a minefield, my friend.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I mentioned, I like their matchup. It's just so hard to stop what Patrick Mahomes can do, and Tyreek Hill can blow by anybody. But the only one that really gives me a whole lot of panic here is going to be that New Orleans game. Obviously, New Orleans is going to be playing for a lot. They're at the end of the year in Week 15. But Kansas City is just so good, so well rounded. The defense is playing really, really good this season. They've really picked it up. Spagnuolo is doing an amazing job with those guys, and it's hard. Just like the Steelers, every week, I think I'm going to have to pick them because they're just so damn good.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't want to put too much into this. I mean, Vegas is they're 1.5 games behind one of the best teams in the league. And that's a really shitty spot to be in. It's a good spot to be in, but on the other hand, it's a really shitty spot. The only thing in Vegas's favor is if they can win this week, and then the Chiefs struggle with any one of those games that we mentioned. Vegas could win the division, but the Chiefs are right now they're sitting in the driver's spot. They control their own destiny, and that's the best place you can be in the second half of the season, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. The number 3 spot for right now goes to the Buffalo Bills at 7-3, crushing, soul crushing, morale eating loss to the Cardinals yesterday.
Yeah, extremely unfortunate. I watched pretty much this whole game, and both teams played really well. The Cardinals went on a little bit of a run. The Bills still have some issues that they got to figure out on defense, even with Matt Milano there now. They've gotten unlucky in the fact that so many of their corners are getting hurt right now. But either way, the NFL is the next man up kind of league. You still have to be able to coach it well enough to win. And they should have won that game. The Cardinals should have never even been in a position to win that game. And we've talked a lot about the Dolphins over the last couple of weeks, and as we should. They've now won 5 in a row, and it just seems like over the last couple of weeks, you could just see the shift happening, that the Dolphins are rising and the Bills are going down. Even after the win last week and Josh Allen throwing for 400 yards, it was like, okay, but that was Seattle's defense, and you threw all over. You wanted to see it against somebody else, and they came into a game and struggled again to get the running game going, and it looks like that's going to be the thing that eats them alive this year.
Yeah, so to take this the 3rd spot is the AFC East right now, and the Buffalo Bills are at the top, but Miami is a half game behind. Fortunately for the Bills, they won in week 2, so that kind of elevates that half game to 1.5 games that the Dolphins have to make up. They play Miami again in week 17. They also, the Bills have New England. That isn't going to be a lock. Yesterday was a big surprising win for Bill Belichick. You can't bet against Bill Belichick. It's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. But even when they suck, you still can't bet against him, as everybody, a bunch of people in Vegas found out yesterday. The Bills also have Pittsburgh. The most important thing to hear, and you touched on this, is the Bills are frantically playing not to lose. They had their shit together, and then pieces start coming off, and they're trying to hold together what they had while they're trying to put the pieces back on and trying to maintain what they had. The Miami Dolphins, man, they smell blood. The Dolphins are getting better. They know they're getting better. Now they know they can beat anyone, and now they know they're a half game out from winning this division for the first time in, 17 years?
Something like that.
Man, if you don't think Brian Flores, you don't think they're already talking about this in the locker room, you're a fool.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the Bills going on a bye week in week 11. This is a huge opportunity to tie the division up. And like you said, Buffalo won the week 2 matchup, so they'll still be on top. But just to get even with them, get even par going into the last, 6 games of the season, going to be huge for them.
Yeah. This is going to be fun to watch. I know that you like the Bills, and I know that we both like Miami. I know that one of us picked Miami to win the division in the preseason picks. I won't mention which handsome older gentleman on this podcast that was, but this is going to be fun to watch. I wish the Buffalo game was down here because we would go.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be awesome. But another tight race to watch here. Either one of these teams could win the division, and I think, unlike some of the other scenarios we talked about, whoever doesn't win this division is still going to probably make the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And deserves to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, when the Bills are completely healthy, which obviously is, that's one of those if could would kind of things. But when the Bills are completely healthy, if they can get healthy, by the time they get in the playoffs, if they're a wild card seed, they're going to play spoils to somebody.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I might also mention, I mean, we get into tiers about the Chiefs and the Steelers are on a different tier, and Buffalo is probably on the second tier. And that's probably true. But again, it's any given Sunday. The Buffalo Bills are very capable of going to the Super Bowl. And in my opinion, at the rate they're at the rate of if Miami keeps the consistency of improving, like they're improving week to week, by the time the playoffs roll around, Miami will be very capable of going to the Super Bowl. And that's what you want to see in your playoff team. So we're going to get that out of the AFC East. All right, I'll talk about that in a minute. Number 4, currently the Indianapolis Colts at the top of the AFC South. Big win over Tennessee. The defense was what we come to expect. They just frustrated the Titans, and the special teams just dominated.
Yeah, and that's one of those phases that not a whole lot of people talk about. But if you go back and look at, every week for the Colts, the special teams for the Colts this is one of the best special teams units, whether it's the punt team or the kickoff teams. It's one of the best special teams units in the league. And obviously, rookie kicker has been, up to this point, one of the best, if not the best kicker in the league this year. So, getting a huge boost from that third phase that nobody talks about is certainly helpful any game.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something else I want to bring up too. I want to bring up the size of Frank Reich's balls.
Yeah, to go for it on 4th down like 6 times that game.
I've never seen anything like it.
No, me either. And I kept hearing the commentators say something about it, like there's no way he's going to do it here. But he just kept going for it and trusted his defense to stop Tennessee.
I want people to realize. So I'm a strategist by nature. That's why I was so successful at coaching. I love chess. I love read. That's why you'll hear me. And for those who are watching, listening, you'll hear me talk about coaches because that's my thing that I'm really interested in. I'm telling you what Frank Reich was doing was he was telling Mike Vrabel, you better back the fuck down because I own this division. That's exactly what that was. You can't stop. We are so not afraid of you. You can't stop us on 4th down. And what people don't understand is that's psychological warfare 101. And that you don't think that'll carry on in the next week when they play again. You are sadly mistaken. They know they couldn't stop them on 4th down. And not only that they couldn't stop them, I just can't emphasize the fact that Reich just complete disregard, like he didn't even care.
Yeah, exactly. There was even one near midfield. A lot of the 4th downs he ran were in Tennessee territory, but there was one when the game was still kind of close. I think it was on the Colts' first possession after they got the ball from halftime. And I think it was like a 4th and 1, 4th and 2. And they were at the 45, I think, on Tennessee's side, so right there at midfield, basically. And I thought for sure he was just going to try to draw him offside and take the penalty and punt it. And like you said, he had the big old balls to say, yep, we're running a play right here. And they got it and they scored. And it worked out for him. It was good. There was the one at the beginning of the game that didn't work out in the red zone that, made you kind of wishy-washy when he brought it back up again, another 4th down. But they did a good job of converting him. And he was finally calling the plays to win the game instead of just, calling plays to keep guys on or keep the offense on the field and keep the defense off the field. He was calling the plays to just win the damn game.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it gives the confidence, the offense confidence in themselves, and they know that they have the confidence of their coach. It gives that air of superiority, right? The offense, the Indianapolis offense, and the Titans defense. It gives that air, that semblance on the field that everybody will come to agreement. Yeah, they're better than we are because we can't stop them on fourth down. And what will also happen is in 2 weeks, now Vrabel has more game film he has to study. He has a problem he didn't know he had. So now he's going to have to waste time and energy studying fourth downs that he would have normally just not, because they just punted away and that wasn't part of the game. While he's doing that, Frank Reich is able to work on something else. This goes a long, long, long way. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because it is way more significant. It's way more significant than just being funny and something to laugh about. This could have long-term implications in 2 weeks. Now,
Yeah, and not only for the Titans, but for the Colts too. That offense has been so inconsistent this year, but they're finally healthy. Ty.'s back in the lineup. Michael Pittman's back in the lineup. Obviously, we're not going to get Paris Campbell and Marlon Mack, but for the pieces that we have available to us, this is the offense that they want to run this year. And I thought using Naheem Hines was a perfect way to go. They used him in all the right ways. That he was great running the ball. He's been in this system longer than any of the other running backs. This is probably the way it should have been. And they were just able to all put it together. And hopefully, obviously, as Colts fans, we hope that with this offense having all their pieces, they can do this continuously every week. But, when we're talking about the Colts Titans and having to play again, I think when they play again and they run another 5 times on fourth down and the Titans can't stop them, it's going to be that confidence from the Colts side. Like, we've already done this. They couldn't stop us before. We're going to push them and shove them all over the field, and they can't do shit about it.
Yeah, and where this is going to come into play, why this is so important is because unlike some of the other scenarios we talked about, including the AFC East, whoever finishes second in this division is probably not going to make the playoffs. Between the Colts and the Titans, they have such a deadly schedules ahead of them so if the Titans beat the Colts this coming week, now they've split. I actually think the Titans may have the current tiebreaker if that's the case. The Colts have the tiebreaker now because of the win. If they split, I think the Titans may have the tiebreaker. But we're still talking about Pittsburgh. We're talking about Las Vegas. I mean, there are some treacherous games in here. There are losses that could be factored into what's going on, enough to push them to the bottom and out of the playoff bubble. So Frank Reich knows winning next week against Tennessee may or may not be the playoffs. So that's why this is so huge. That mental advantage going into 2 weeks. It's also a Lucas Oil Stadium. It's going to be in Indianapolis. So I think the Colts, I picked the Titans last week. They were in Tennessee. We talked about it. I think they're evenly matched in a lot of ways, but they were in Tennessee. So I picked Tennessee. Couldn't be more happy to be wrong. Now we're going to Lucas Oil Stadium. Now we went for it on fourth down 6 times and got 4 or 5 of them. Now the special team just completely dominated. The Colts, in my opinion, really have the advantage and looking like they're going to hold this playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beginning of that game against Tennessee, was really the only time their offense could get it rolling. And obviously the Titans scored 0 points in the second half. And so you got to imagine that after watching the tape of the first half and seeing, that drop that A.J. Brown had on the sideline that would have for sure been a touchdown if he doesn't drop that ball. They're looking at plays like that, the drops that they had in that game. I mean, Tennessee shot themselves in the foot, no doubt about it. They had like 5 drops in that game. But they're looking at those explosive plays and the ones that they connected on. The Titans, obviously, Derrick Henry had a couple of big runs. The only reason he really got to 100 because he was stifled on a lot. But they're going to look at those big plays and come into that next game, like you said, playoff atmosphere, and it's going to be a fun show to see the Indianapolis Colts defense against that Tennessee Titans offense.
Yeah, for sure. So let me run down real quick because we're going to talk about Tennessee's schedule. All right, so Tennessee goes to Baltimore. I'm not really sure how that's going to go. If Baltimore would have beat the Patriots yesterday, I would say going into Baltimore, Tennessee doesn't have a chance. I'm not so sure right now. I like Vrabel. There's no doubt in my mind they're trying to fix what happened. They could go into Baltimore. Baltimore's reeling. They trying to keep things. We'll talk about that game later. So the Colts I was going to say the Colts had a better chance of beating Green Bay at home than Tennessee does going into Baltimore. I still think that's true to an extent, but both of those games could go either way, for sure. But if the Colts beat Green Bay and Tennessee loses to Baltimore, then the Colts would move one game ahead, which would basically it wouldn't be enough for the Titans to just beat the Colts. They're going to have to make up another game, and that's going to be tough. So Tennessee will. The other division games for the Colts, what I want to say is they have to go to Houston, week 13. They have Houston. They host Houston at home on week 15 and Jacksonville week 17. I know we could talk about the Texans and I don't think I think the Colts should at this point should get all three of those games. They still have Vegas and they still have Pittsburgh, and both of those teams we could argue they're in Vegas and they're at Pittsburgh, and either of those games could go either way. And I think at this point Pittsburgh has the advantage, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game for sure. But their offense has been more consistent than the Colts. You have probably the two best defenses going against or in that one game. But as of right now, at least you would have to trust Pittsburgh's offense more than the Colts' offense.
And you'd have to trust Pittsburgh's defense. And I hate to say it, I'm not a Rivers basher. You know that I like what Frank Reich did bringing him in. I thought it was a great choice. It was a great temporary solution to the problem they had. But I like Pittsburgh's defense up against Philip Rivers. If they can stuff the run and they can bring some pressure, Rivers is going to start letting it fly all over the place, and then the probability goes up of interceptions, and that might be the difference in the game before it's over. And we could be wrong. We got a long way to go. We got a lot of fixes ahead of us. We're getting way ahead of ourselves because that's all the way in week 16. But so we'll keep an eye on that. Let's move on to we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ravens and the Titans here in a minute. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about this. But in the fifth spot, the first wild card spot right now is the Raiders. They're 6-3. I thought they were a game and a half, but I've got 2 games here behind the Chiefs. They've got a tiebreaker over Cleveland, Indy, Miami on win percentages of conference games. It's really at this point we're way too early to talk about that. They had a big divisional win over the Broncos, and the fact of the matter is that I'm going to skip ahead to their games a little bit, and then I'll let you talk about them because I know you're well versed in the Raiders. I mean, they beat KC in week 5. They have KC again next week this week in week 11, like we talked about. They also have Denver, but it's in Vegas. They have the Chargers, but then they're at Denver again. It's tough to win a Mile High, especially in an interdivisional game. So we got to watch out for that one. And they have Indianapolis and Miami. So the Raiders don't exactly have an easy path either.
No, not at all. They obviously certainly have the capability to overcome it. They in the AFC they've had the hardest schedule so far in the AFC, the best strength of victory in the AFC, so they can certainly beat any of these teams any given week, especially the way they play. I've mentioned, I want to say probably 3-4 weeks ago, that with Jonathan Abram in the lineup for the Raiders defense, it's just completely different. Obviously, it's not, they're nothing stellar or outstanding. They're still going to let up some points, but they're more bend don't break with Jonathan Abram in there than they were before. With him out for a couple weeks, they let up a lot of big plays. But also going for the Raiders right now is the fact that they're able to lean on Josh Jacobs in the run game. They've even used Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker, the backup there, has come in, had 2 rushing touchdowns this past week. Josh Jacobs has 2 rushing touchdowns, over 100 yards. They're just coming in and smacking people in the mouth, playing old school football. And John Gruden loves that shit, right? And he could do that all day. And if they're going to dominate people in the rush game after game, then eventually Derek Carr is going to start hitting Nelson Aguilar and Henry Ruggs over top and start burning people when the run game isn't really there for them. So, right now they really have it all going for them. There's a couple injuries. They struggled when their linemen got hurt and had to miss a game because of COVID. That's going to be an issue. Obviously for anybody, a lineman getting hurt would be an issue, but they really struggled without a couple other linemen in there. So as long as they stay healthy, they're going to be a problem for anybody.
Yeah, for sure. And what's really exciting to me is that a lot of these AFC games that we talked about, the playoff contenders all play each other over the next couple of weeks. I mean, the Raiders play Indianapolis, the Raiders play Miami, the Raiders are playing the Chiefs, and the Ravens are mixed in. The Indianapolis has Pittsburgh. There's a lot of really good AFC games coming up in the coming weeks to help settle this picture. All right, number 6 right now is currently the Miami Dolphins. It could very easily trade places with the Buffalo Bills. They are right on the heels of the Buffalo Bills. We talked about that. They smell blood. They smell an opportunity that hasn't been there. No one expected them to be where they're at. They're getting better. Well, I did, but nobody else did. I keep saying you guys were on board with me. I want everybody to know that. I've been high on this team since Flores came. I've been watching very closely. And these two guys were right there with me having conversations and saw it right with me as we talked about it. I picked them to win this division, but both of you picked them to do well. They're doing exactly what we thought they'd do. And I'm telling you, man, they just keep getting better week after week. And in my opinion, the Dolphins may be the most dangerous team in the AFC for that reason, because of because they're not only getting better, but the unpredictability factor is through the roof.
Yeah, and especially this past weekend on Sunday, I thought they would have an issue with the Chargers. I still picked them to win, but I thought, you're missing Myles Gaskin, you're missing your number 2 receiver and Preston Williams. Maybe the offense isn't what it should be, and it didn't even matter. There was a running back that they used that I had never even heard of before, but he was effective for him, with obviously Matt Breida out too. And Jakeem Grant came in. I believe he caught a touchdown in this game. So the missing pieces they filled guys in, and Brian Flores and his coaching staff got these guys ready to play, and they performed really well. So, after seeing what they were able to do to the Chargers with a couple missing pieces, then, just like you were saying, I'm confident picking them going against anybody that they have left on their schedule.
Yeah, for sure. And just as a footnote, it's still early. It's still real early. But right now, Tua looks pretty damn good. The thing about Tua is he isn't commanding the same conversations that Burrow's having. But he doesn't need to, because he has a better team around him. And the conversation that I think is important around Tua is how comfortable he looks on the field. Not that he's dazzling and putting up, just ridiculous numbers or whatever the case may be. He looks like he belongs there. And for a franchise quarterback, you want a guy who looks like he belongs there.
Yeah, and especially for a young quarterback to not be a bad decision maker. You see some guys come into the league and end up being really good or great quarterbacks in the league, but come in and even Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his rookie year, just bad decision making. And they've done an amazing job coaching. Obviously, Tua and the whole story with his dad and being careful of mistakes anyways. But this coaching staff has just done a tremendous job. And I'm one of the people who thought they were crazy for pulling Fitzpatrick when they did. And
I agree. Me too.
He said, Tua's ready. He's ready to go right now. And I thought for sure that was a mistake. But Tua has come out and proven me and everybody else who doubted him wrong. And like I was mentioning, his decision making is on point. And that's just so big for a young guy, because that team around him has so many veteran players that, they're ready to win right now. So plugging him in, and for him to be as good as he is right now and his playmaking ability, just like the Raiders, they can beat anybody right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I still don't know if I still think if Fitzpatrick were at the helm, the Dolphins would be better than they have been the last 2 weeks. But I was also critical of pulling Fitzpatrick. Right. It was a gamble. It could have gone either way. But I think it's paying off because they're still winning. And and Tua is shown that he belongs here, and he's going to do nothing but get better. So with this gamble is going to pay off maybe for this year, but definitely for next year. So when Miami gets all four of those draft picks in the first and second round again next year coming into camp, now Tua has the experience. So Fitzpatrick could have stayed in there and taken them to the playoffs, maybe into the Super Bowl, whatever. But Tua is now in there. He looks like he's also capable of going through the playoffs and maybe even to the Super Bowl. But next year when they come back around, he's a veteran. And they're going to bring all those guys in with all the veterans they already have. And Miami is really poised to do a lot of damage in this division for the years to come.
Yep.
Good on Flores, man.
Yep.
Really, yep.
Right. Well, he's the only real Belichick disciple that's done anything, right? I mean, Bill O'Brien won a division a couple times, but never really did anything in the playoffs.
Yeah. And Vrabel. I mean, we're waiting to see what happens with Vrabel. But as of right now, I like what Vrabel's done. I hate it that they're in the same division with the Colts. I like what Vrabel's done. We keep talking about that. I'm glad Tannehill is doing well. But when it comes down to it, Flores is building a potential dynasty down here. They could legitimately go on a 7 to 10 year run down here. Tennessee doesn't look that way to me. First of all, if Derrick Henry goes down, Tennessee comes apart at the seams. And they got a lot of defensive problems to fix. And Miami started with their defense. The whole damn thing has started with their defense. And if your offensive producers go down, but your defense is good enough to hold the team together, you can find a way to win. And you really can't do it the other way around. So I think when you compare these two side by side, Flores is winning this race. But again, I don't want to bash what Vrabel's doing because I think he's doing a very good job in Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, number 7, Baltimore Ravens. We talked a lot about them. They lost to the Patriots last night. Shit is coming unraveled at the seams. We've talked about they haven't been living up their potential. We talked about, but that has been okay. Waiting for them to find that spark, whatever it takes to tweak the adjustment to finally go. But now it appears that the wheels might be starting to come off, and the Ravens could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's the way it seems. And you mentioned how the AFC South teams, how, whichever the Titans or the Colts, whichever doesn't win the divisions out of the playoffs, I don't think that's the case. Because I think the Ravens on, with their remaining schedule, the trajectory that they're on right now, I think they get bounced out for the Titans. Or the Browns, the Browns are still in the run. But I think it'll be the Titans by the end of the year. The Ravens, I kind of mentioned this to you, but I think, Lamar said something about how, teams are calling out their plays, which is commonplace in the NFL. That's why these dudes watch film, so that they can call out the plays. But the job of the offensive coordinator is to set those plays and then have different things that you do in that play, different things that you do schematically to make them think you're doing one thing, but you do another. And it's on the quarterback to see in real time what the defense is doing and see what they're checking and make checks onto that. And right now they're just losing the chess match. And we're talking about Bill Belichick here. He's probably the greatest defensive mind ever. So maybe I'm putting too much into that. But it just seems to me, they designed this offense to fit around Lamar Jackson, and you can only do so much with that. So, like, is it a problem he can't create more plays and he can't find more creative ways to go about it? So they're just trying to bullnose their way through the plays that they have in the playbook. I don't know, but it's not working the way it did last year. It's not even working the way it did for the first couple of weeks this year. There's been plenty of film on it, and it seems like they're having real issues with their offense right now.
Agreed. However, I would like to add a disclaimer, right? We are talking about the Ravens at the perceptive level that we have of the Ravens. When everything is still said and done, if this Ravens team can slip into the playoffs at any moment, they could find their mojo and they could find themselves in the AFC Championship. They're still extremely dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lamar, game to game, you certainly can't bet against him, especially when he has a guy like a Marquise Brown that can burn anybody in the league, or three-headed monster at running back. But That running game is really obviously Lamar is not so much the issue as passing's kind of been an issue, but that running game has been terrible. And then the catching out of the backfield has been a problem. Yesterday, the Ravens should have had a chance to win that game, but Dobbins drops the ball that he should have easily caught. And obviously the weather played a part in that. But either way, they got to get these running backs going one way or another.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So on the outside looking in, we have the Cleveland Browns at 6-3, the Tennessee Titans at 6-3. We've talked about Tennessee enough. I mean, they are in the hunt with Indianapolis. They have to, in my opinion, they have to beat Indianapolis next week to even really be in the conversation about winning this division, and even being, for that matter, being in the playoffs. They still have Baltimore. They still have they have Indianapolis. So they may have a chance, and I don't want to say never say never, but they have to beat Indianapolis for us to continue to talk about them being in the playoffs. The Browns, they've got Tennessee, they've got Baltimore, they've got Pittsburgh. At this point, I think the Browns, I think Tennessee has a way better shot than the Browns do, and the Ravens and the Dolphins and the Raiders have a way better shot than the Browns do. I think they're kind of an afterthought at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously the record is more so, what they were able to do with Odell Beckham in the lineup. But without Odell Beckham in the lineup, you're not going to play the Texans every week. So, unfortunately for them, they're probably going to be more around a 7-9, 8-8 kind of team by the end of the year.
Yeah. So, all right, before we go, there's one more thing I got to bring up. All right. Hefe, you know who isn't on this list?
Who's that?
The New England Patriots.
You're damn right they're not.
Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels. I don't know what's going on. They were talking last night that don't count the Patriots out. They were talking about them still being in the hunt. What in the are you kidding me? Playoffs? Look, they would almost have to win all or almost all of the remaining games. Were they at 4 wins? What's the record?
4-5.
Okay, so they're at 4-5. All right. We just went down the whole thing. Look, the Browns are at 6-3. The Titans are at 6-3. I don't think either of those teams are going to make the playoffs. All right. The Patriots, they beat the Ravens. I'm not so sure the Ravens didn't beat the Ravens. They're not going to win 7 games. So what they have left, they could probably beat the Texans. If they don't beat the Jets, then I'm going to drive up there and beat Beelzebub's ass. All right. Probably the Chargers. I still think that goes either way, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they beat all 3 of those teams. That's 3 wins. But you know what else they have? They have the Cardinals. They have the Dolphins. They have the Rams. They have the Bills. Right? To quote an old Firehouse brother of mine, don't be stupid. Right? I don't. What is this, ratings or I don't know? Are they hoping Beelzebub takes them out on a fishing trip or so? Then again, it's Chris Collinsworth, and maybe Al Michaels has been out of the game so much he was just agreeing with Chris Collinsworth talking nonsense. But it caught my attention, that's for sure. The Patriots have no chance of getting the playoffs. Mathematically, they're not eliminated, but they're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah, no, there's a 0% chance. I'm sure there's probably like a 1.9% chance, but there's a 0% chance the Patriots make it.
Exactly. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to say that.
Yeah, finally, dude. 20 years we've had to put up with this shit. Peyton's the GOAT. Tom Brady, Patriots.
All right.
I'm so glad we did that.
Good. I'm glad you feel better about it. All right. So that is it for the playoff picture. Every week now, instead of recapping all the games, we just run down through the games that matter with the playoff teams. If your team didn't make it, sorry, it's not my fault. At least we talked about the Patriots and who was the other team we gave the eulogy for? Oh, the Panthers. So if you're a Patriots Panthers fan, at least you made the conversation today. It's not too late to go head to head against us in the weekly pick'em battle. Hop on our Facebook, Twitter page at Horsemen Sports, where you can find the link to join our free pigskin pick'em league and win a prize. Maybe get on air with us. Who knows? Represent your team. We definitely we've done that a little bit this year. Next year, we really want to do that a lot. So every Wednesday, check out Hefe's weekly power rankings. You can find it on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. Again, that's at Horsemen Sports. Be sure to check that out and let us know in the comments what you think about your favorite team's ranking. And look, if you don't agree with him, tell him. He's smarter than you, but it's okay. He's got thick skin. He can take it. In the fantasy, huh?
I agree.
All right. If you're into fantasy football, please check out our weekly episode of Fantasy Central, where Zach and Hefe will cover this week's top waiver wire picks, must starts, and players to avoid this coming week. And of course, as always, we will see you back here on Thursday for this coming week's game picks and preview show. Until then, thanks for joining us and enjoy the games. See you Thursday.